What's going on, friends? The other day, I ran across a carbureted twin cam 88, and the sound of that bike just took me back and reminded me that they don't build them like they used to. And that got me to thinking, are the older Harleys really better than the newer Harleys? And as you all know, this is something that always comes up in conversation. Now, whether you prefer the old Harleys or the new Harleys, this is completely a matter of perspective. But it got me to thinking, are the older bikes really better than the newer bikes? I mean, they both have their issues, but it really comes down to what do you want to deal with? Now, I will say this. Back in the day, we could definitely fix any Harley-Davidson on the side of the road. Now, I say back in the day, if you still ride an older bike, something with a carburetor, you can still definitely fix that bike on the side of the road without any issues. But on the other hand, you're definitely going to be touching that bike a lot more than a new one, theoretically. Guys, please don't forget, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. With the newer modern Harleys, the theory behind this is that there is less maintenance to do. You change your fluids, you do your lubrication points, and you go on down the road. There's actually less mechanical parts in there when it comes to ignition, electronics, things like that, that you're actually going to have to touch, not like in the old days where carburetor jets got clogged, you had to clean and rebuild carburetors occasionally, and points ignition, you had to go in and actually file them and service them and adjust them from time to time. Now, I get it with the older bikes, this was just something that we lived with for years. You had to go in and actually do a lot of hands-on maintenance on the older motorcycles. That was just part of the game, especially on a Harley. I mean, if you didn't Loctite everything on these bikes, especially in the shovelhead era, the Evo era, even the twin cam era, you were setting yourself up for some really big issues. Now, one of the biggest benefits of the older Harleys, the Evos, the twin cams, pretty much anything with a carburetor on it, is that these bikes are stupid simple. Everything's simple on them. The ignition, everything. There's nothing overcomplicated about these bikes. Carburetors. Everything on them was pretty much mechanical, including the speedometer. And that has a lot of benefits. So, honestly, you could actually fix those on the side of the road with some simple tools and maybe a few extra spare parts. Now, when it comes to the newer stuff, yes, you are less likely to have a failure, maybe, but if you were to have a failure, now, maybe you get lucky and your buddy's just not happy to see you and he actually has a crank sensor in his pocket. Now, that is kind of one benefit of the newer bikes is that when something is wrong, you can actually, you'll probably get a light on the dash, which that's helpful. Now, when it comes to that, that can be very misleading, but that light on the dash, you can pull the code, and that gives you a direction to go in almost immediately, and then you can work back from there. Now, that sounds all well and good, but it's not foolproof. Anybody that has experience diagnosing engine lights will tell you that does not mean that's exactly what the cause is. Whatever's causing it could be causing that light, and it may not even be directly related to what that code says it is. But the newer bikes are so complicated that it's virtually impossible to really diagnose what's going on with these without having that light and having a place to start. It's not like on the older bikes where if you were to incur an issue on the side of the road or you were able to make it back home, you could phone a friend, you could bring somebody over, or just use your own mechanical knowledge to kind of start going through a process of elimination right there. So kind of the point there is that yes, the new stuff's great, but the older stuff, you could still fix at home in your garage with probably some parts you had laying around if you've been in the business a while. Now, definitely one major benefit to the newer Harley-Davidsons is just the sheer amount of engine power that they can produce. We get out of the Evo era, we move up through the twin cams, we start getting into that 103 and the Milwaukee 8s. They just kept producing exponentially more power than the generation of engine before them. Now, at the same time, yes, they did get a little bit more complicated from what we were used to, but that power output, it was done much more reliably than what we were building years ago. I mean, if you think about it, with the Milwaukee 8 now, the power output coming right out of the factory, that was a level of power output on the twin cam that we saw in race motors at one point. And now it's coming out fully legal for the street from the factory. Now, if you think about it, with the kind of power numbers that we're seeing today with the new Harleys, if you tried to do that with an Evolution engine or a twin cam, yeah, it was pretty much a time bomb made for the track. Could you get that kind of power out of something like that? Absolutely. Now, the big question is how long is it going to do it for? The reliability was just not there when it came to Evolution engines and twin cam engines trying to push that kind of power where you're getting up 130 horsepower, 130 foot-pounds of torque. Now, this is a big debate right here. Carburetors versus fuel injection. Do the new bikes sound better than the old bikes? If you said the new bikes sound better than the older bikes with the carburetor, I would probably have to call you a liar and be like, really? You really like that sound better? Don't get me wrong, the newer bikes, even the Milwaukee 8s, they got a big cam in them. They do sound pretty good, but nothing beats that lope that we had with the carbureted motorcycles. Now, as I mentioned, fuel injection is pretty much maintenance free, and when it comes to carburetors, from time to time, you do have to do a little bit of adjustments and maintenance on them. It's just part of the game. But if you've been doing it for long enough, it's really not a big issue. But the one thing is that it is nice to go out and hit that start button and have it fire right up. Now, depending on what you like better, what you're more comfortable with, there's nothing wrong with a carburetor and there's nothing wrong with fuel injection. But I will say this, if you did buy an Evo with the Magneti Marelli back in the day, you were probably better off going with the carburetor. I definitely would have taken the carbureted option all day long when it came to the Magneti Marelli. And that's why you see so many of these Evos now with Magneti Marellis, if they started to have problems, they're getting converted back over to carburetors the way the Harley gods intended. But when the Delphi fuel injection came around for the twin cams, that was a game changer for Harley-Davidson. That made all the difference right there. That system was leaps and bounds of the Magneti Marelli. But I was very sad. 2007 was a very sad day for me when the 2007 models came out and there was no longer a carbureted option. Everything was fuel injected. Now, the fuel injected bikes do sound good, but they do idle higher than the older carbureted bikes. And Harley-Davidson recommends that you leave it at 1,000 RPMs, but if you gotta idle it down, you can go down to about 900 RPM. The issue is that with the fuel-injected bikes, they need to idle a little higher to keep the top end properly lubricated. That is basically what that is all about. Yes, you could idle a fuel-injected bike down really low, and it would lope and it would sound good, but at what cost to the top end of your motor? One of the good things about the older bikes is that the parts are plentiful, and yes, they are easy to work on, but you will have to touch them more. They are going to need more upkeep and more maintenance than the newer bikes. Now, theoretically, the newer bikes are more reliable. Now, the way they're defining reliability with the newer motorcycles is basically you have to touch them less. There are less service points that need to be done outside of basic lubrication, keeping it clean, changing the oil, make sure you change your transmission fluid, and your primary. That's pretty much it. That is the only thing about reliability that I feel like the new bikes have over the old bikes. And not to mention the new bikes, they are exponentially more expensive to rebuild or do any kind of major repairs on. When it comes to the older bikes, especially today, the parts are very plentiful and they're arguably pretty inexpensive, especially when it comes to the Evolution engine. Now, Shovelhead's kind of hit that kind of threshold where it's really become a classic now, and parts are getting a lot more expensive when it comes to the Shovelhead bikes. And honestly, not a lot of guys still ride those every weekend anymore. But anyhow, guys, let me know your thoughts. Do you guys think the newer stuff's really all that bad and the older stuff's all that great? Or do you think the older stuff's just trash and go ahead and get something newer? That's going to be the way to go. I want your opinions down in the comments, but I'll just go ahead and let you know mine. I prefer the older stuff. The look, the feel, the ride. I just feel like you can't match that with the newer bikes today. But anyhow, guys, let me know your opinion down in the comments. But till next week, guys, you stay safe on the streets, you ride smart, dodge those cars. I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.